They come from every corner of the world, with powers we only dream of. Here to battle the forces of nature, known for their strength, their boldness, their intelligence, and their courage. Some are witty, some are sweet, but most of all, they are Silky Momz.
It's interesting because I did a lot of research when we were going through prior to the donor egg process. And actually, people that are born from a donor egg or a surrogate technically have 3 biological parents.
That's so cool.
So they have the donor egg is a biological parent. Then whoever the sperm came from is a biological parent. And then the surrogate is also a biological parent because their blood, their DNA
is what built them pretty much.
Built, yes. Yeah. So there's a lot of research about they technically have 3 biological parents.
Hi, and welcome back to Silky Momz. I'm Sydney.
And I'm Amber.
And this week we have a special guest, Miss Haley. Haley came to us last week and wanted to share her story about her momming, and it's something that I couldn't even speak about because I don't have experience in this. And so we're going to talk about infertility and treatments and the things that women go through in order to just have a baby, because we know, like, I don't know. I'm stumbling over my words here because it's such like a deep thing that not everyone knows about. And like I have a lot of friends who share their stories on social media, and you follow these things and you just like your heart goes out to them and you're like, I want this so bad for you. But there's nothing like you can do other than just pray, basically. For another disclaimer, we are not medical professionals. We are just a couple of moms with the power of Google and sharing our own experiences.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions or need advice, please go seek out a professional. Or if you have questions for us or for Haley, feel free to leave them in the comments, and we can get those answered.
Yeah.
So Haley, can you please tell us about who you are, your kids, and we'll just go there.
Yeah. My husband and I had just actually celebrated 11 years of marriage recently. Yeah. A couple weeks ago. So we have been married for 11 years and we lived in Salina for about 10 years now.
Wow.
I just do human resources, and that's kind of my day job, and working as a full-time mom of 3 little girls. So yeah.
That's awesome. How old are they?
So I have twins that are just going to turn 5 next week.
Oh, wow.
And then I have another little girl who'll be 2 in June.
Oh, that's like the perfect age.
Yeah,
it is.
It's the busy age, but it's also the fun age.
Yeah.
And also the age where you want to pull your hair out.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Madeline's 2.5, and we're somehow going through sleep training again. And I'm like,
yep.
You were
What's going
fine
on?
a month ago, and now I put her to bed, and it's, Mom.
Right. Yep.
I'm like,
Cadmus just
go to
turned
sleep.
3, and he does the same thing. He's up at 3 a.m. every night. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, sleeping.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Who back to bed?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So I don't know how to even approach this topic, Haley. So how did you figure out you needed to, I guess the obvious answer is we tried and nothing happened.
Yeah. So, we decided once we got married, we were probably going to start trying pretty early on because, we were older at the time, and my husband's 5 years older than I am. And so we'd been trying, and, just nothing was working. And so I had just kind of went for my yearly OBGYN appointment. I mentioned it to my doctor, and he's like, well, if you would like, we can always run some tests just to make sure everything's good. I'm like, well, yeah, let's do that. So we did, and he said, everything came back okay. So he didn't really see any areas of concern. So told me to keep trying, basically. And we did. And so then I followed up with him. I think it was probably about 6 months later because it had been 1.5 years at that point. And we had the conversation. And so he started me on Clomid, which is a pretty popular infertility drug for both men and women, actually. And so I was on that for 6 months, and the only thing I got was a huge cyst that ruptured. So
geez.
at that
Yeah.
point, he's like, I think I'm going to transfer you on to, the professionals that deal with this every day. It's kind of out of my area of expertise.
Right.
So that's when he transferred me to, or referred me to, the Center for Reproductive Medicine in Wichita.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And I started there, and they kind of started doing some they did a laparoscopic surgery to go in and check things out. They found out I had some endometriosis, cleaned all that out. Then they started just some kind of fertility treatments. They did some testing of their own. We started out with inseminations. We did I think 11 of those.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Nothing worked. Then they kind of came back, and the doctor's like, you do have some numbers that are kind of concerning. And as the more we go through this, we're seeing that this number's declining. So then they ended up diagnosing me with diminished ovarian reserve.
Wow.
Which means I don't have that many eggs left.
Right.
And the ones that I do have, it can affect their quality.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we kind of talked a little bit about maybe the best course of action would be IVF. Anybody that knows anything about IVF knows that it's really expensive.
Wildly expensive.
Yes.
How expensive are we talking?
It can range anywhere depending on if you have, if you don't have medical insurance to cover the prescriptions, that's where a lot of the cost will come in. Thankfully, my insurance did cover that, and that's how we were able to do it as many times as we did. Because people that don't have that, the medicine alone can be around $10,000.
Holy crap.
Yeah,
It's expensive.
depending on your protocol and how much you need of what and different
then
types.
all the way up
yeah.
to doctor's fees, another $8,000 sometimes.
Yeah.
So close to $20,000 a kid if
Yeah.
you're lucky.
For those of us in the booth who are unfamiliar,
Yeah.
what does that mean? What is the IVF or whatever that is? What does that mean? What is that?
It's in vitro fertilization. So basically, they pump the woman full of hormones to try to get them to produce as many follicles as possible. And then they go in and they just monitor those throughout, 2-week span. And then they essentially, once you're ready, they have you take another drug that makes you essentially ovulate. But before you go in to ovulate, you go in for the procedure where they basically take a needle
Suck all those eggs out.
and they just pop every follicle to suck
Right.
the eggs out. And thankfully, I was asleep for every one
Yeah.
of those, so I didn't,
Thank gosh.
didn't have that experience or remember it really. But so then, they just take all of those eggs, and they take them into the lab and they look them over, and at that time they go in and fertilize them. And so we went with it. I cannot remember for the life of me what the procedure was called, but they injected the sperm directly into the egg. Sometimes they will just put the sperm in the petri dish with
And
the
just let it
egg
figure
and let
it
it do
out.
its thing. But we went ahead and had it manually injected, I guess you could say. So, yeah.
Yep. And then they figure out which ones are healthy, and then
Yeah.
they decide which ones to put back, and they put one back, or multiple. You freeze some, you keep some, you don't. But-
Typically, they'll call you the next day and say,
Yeah.
well, after you wake up from, you come to after
they'll say how many eggs you
the
got.
retrieval, they'll let you know how many eggs you received or they got out. And then the next day, they'll usually typically follow up and say, hey, you had this many that were mature, and then you had this many that were able to be fertilized.
Yep.
And so then you essentially every day is just you're waiting on pins and needles for that phone call to see the health of the eggs or the embryos, and if they make it to the embryo stage, and if they make it to the blastocyst stage. Obviously, you're wanting them to be able to get as many as you can, because then there's always that chance that they make it to that stage where they can be frozen. And then they put them in, the freezer so that you can always try again next time, and you don't have to go through the whole process again. Unfortunately, that was never my case. I went through 4 rounds of IVF.
Wow.
And I never had any that were able to be frozen. I got pregnant every single time,
Oh.
but also miscarried every single time.
Holy crap.
Yeah. So I had the 4 miscarriages. And then, after the third one, my doctor's like, look, he's like, I think your best bet's going to be donor eggs. He's like, just because of your diminished ovarian reserve, the quality's not there. He's like, yeah, you're getting pregnant, which means obviously your uterus and everything is very healthy and can carry a child, but the quality of your egg just isn't there.
Right.
There was something in me, they had started kind of a new protocol. And so I was like, I think I just need to give it that one more shot. And so he's like, hey, look, we'll do whatever you want to do, but I'm telling you, your best shot is. And so I wanted to do it one more time. And of course, my husband was very supportive of that. And so we went another round and got pregnant. But ultimately, I would always miscarry right around the 8-week mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's rough. Yeah.
Definitely a roller coaster, because every time you get ready to go through a new treatment, whether that's inseminations or IVF or whatever the case may be, you kind of have that hope like,
Right.
okay, this is going to be the month. This is going to be the time that it actually works.
Yeah.
And then you go through just the emotions of the treatment itself, and you're like, okay, you're trying to pump yourself up. But then, of course, with my experience, with that first round of IVF, I didn't even think that it was a possibility of a miscarriage. Like, I don't know, like I was just so naive to the fact that, okay, this
And
is
excited it stuck.
yeah,
you
like
know?
this is going to be the answer. And so when we did go through the miscarriage, like it was devastating. I probably holed up in my house for over a week with the blinds shut. I went into depression for sure. So you also, when you keep going through the treatment after a miscarriage, you also try not to get your hopes up, but still have the hope that it's going to happen. And so every month was just a continual roller coaster of emotions. Like you had hope, try not to get your hopes up too high because you don't want to be disappointed. And then when you find out it didn't work again, you just kind of come crashing down again.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, like everyone kept saying, well, why do you keep doing this to yourself? I'm like, but how do you give up on a dream? Like you just don't. Like I had always wanted to be a mom. That's everything I'd always wanted to be. I had 2 younger brothers. I was kind of a mother hen to them. And so it was just always my dream to be a mom. And I just couldn't imagine not. So I'm like, I don't know how you give up on that.
Yeah.
But
Man. So
Yeah, I feel that too.
you went through those 4 rounds. And so at what point did you finally say, like, okay, it's time for the next step? Like, what made you really kind of commit?
I think I was always committed. I think in the back of my mind a little bit, I was having this kind of, I don't know, the feeling of like, will I really be their mom if it's a donor egg? Like, I don't know. It seems crazy to think about, but I felt like I was replacing myself. So that was kind of the battle that I had. But I was always committed because I was going to do what it took to become a mom.
Yeah.
I would obviously say that Jason probably had the hardest time with the donor egg concept because he was so worried about me and what that would do to me, like emotionally and just trying to process all of that. And I loved my doctor. I think he's retired now, but he was Dr. Jaden in Wichita.
Okay.
And he always treated us like we were his own kids. And so he sat us down and he's like, look, Jason, he's like, at the end of the day, your wife wants to grow a baby in her tummy.
Yeah.
She wants to be pregnant. She wants to feel the kick. She wants to feel everything that the pregnant woman feels. She wants to have that baby. He goes, she doesn't care how it gets there.
Right.
He was, that's you in your own head. And so it was from that point on where Jason's like, okay, like
right.
if this is what
Let's
you
do
want,
it.
let's
Right.
do it. Yeah. So I really
That's great.
appreciated him having that conversation because I know Jason was just trying to protect me, but
Right.
he was more hesitant probably than I was. Of course, the cost too. I mean,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So how do you
That's
choose?
intense.
How do you choose a donor?
yeah, it's quite the process. Like it's so weird. It's so surreal for me. Like it was hard because we get this website. It's like we went through my egg bank. And so you basically get an online password and account and you go in and you can just start going through them. It's kind of like social media. In a way.
my God.
Yeah, it's kind of
Wow.
crazy. So you don't get to see what they look like now. It's anonymous, but they
Oh,
would,
okay.
that particular one. I'm sure there's ones that are
Right.
open that I didn't
Right.
have experience with, but so you don't get to see any pictures of what they currently look like, but they do include some baby pictures or pictures when they were younger,
Oh,
their
that's cool.
family history, basic demographics like eye color,
Yeah.
hair color. I mean, just basic information like that. And their likes, dislikes, interest. I mean,
That's so cool.
yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's so neat.
Yeah.
So were there any like specifics you were looking for in a donor?
You know, for whatever reason, I was stuck on the eye color, and I don't know why. It seems so weird
Okay.
now, but for whatever reason, I'm like, well, this one has brown eyes. I want them to have the green eyes or hazel eyes like I have,
Yeah.
you know? So for a while, I was stuck on that, and I didn't even select somebody that had that. So it didn't matter,
What
obviously.
color of eyes does Jason have?
He has brown.
Okay.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny.
Dominant color probably would have came out.
Probably gonna get brown-eyed
But
kids
all of my
either way.
girls have blue eyes. So,
Oh, wow.
I mean,
Wow.
yeah, all of them have
That's
blue.
awesome. They
Yeah.
beat the odds there.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's crazy how it all worked out. But I just wanted it to feel right more so than anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I
Yeah.
ended up choosing who I chose. Like a lot of her interests were the same as my interest. She had a good medical history, family history. So that was obviously important. So that I just went with somebody who felt right. And that's what it ended up being in the end. But
That's awesome.
and it also shows too, like if they've had successful pregnancies from their donations.
Yeah.
Does it give like a 5-star rating review?
It doesn't.
My kid is cute. 5 stars.
Yeah. And obviously they have to meet a certain quality to be able to be a donor anyway. But it meant a lot to me that, okay, well, I already know that somebody was able to get pregnant from her. So that was helpful too.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So the first set you had twins, right? Did that split from one egg, or was that
No,
2 eggs
that was
you
two.
chose to have twins?
So and from my experience, when we got picked a donor, we get 6 eggs from that one donor. And our nurse from the very beginning always told us, like, expect one baby from this, one baby.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, well, when you go in for the transfer, like they don't tell us the quality of the other eggs because they don't know, or embryos at that point, what they're going to be. Yeah. And so we're like, if we get one shot, let's just transfer both.
Right.
Like, because we don't know if they're going to make it to freezing. We don't know.
Right.
So we went ahead and transferred 2, and they came in, they're like, they're both excellent quality, we're good to go. Right. So I actually was getting ready to go in for my first appointment after the transfer. To get my first son. I knew I was pregnant at the time. I had found out I was pregnant. I was getting ready to go in for my first sonogram, and I just start bleeding.
Oh no.
And I was in a wreck. I'm like, here we are again. Like, it's not working again. Here we are. And so I went in, and the nurse was like, are you okay? And I'm like, no, I'm bleeding. I know I'm miscarrying again. Yeah. And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, we'll get the doctor in here. We'll figure out what's going on. So he starts doing the sonogram, and he's like, there's 2. And I'm like, what? I'm like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah. And so my husband's like, okay, so we're out of the woods. And he's like, well, no, not yet. I mean, he's like, it's still early. But they both had strong heartbeats. And I just had kind of like a pool of blood in the uterus that was causing that, which is very, very common in IVF. So yeah, that was that. And I found out we had 2. And
oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, I actually bled all the way through 14 weeks.
Yeah.
So, which was an
terrifying.
emotional roller coaster in
Some people
itself.
get like hematomas in and around in the uterus, and they just kind of free bleed until they heal.
Which is what I had.
It's so panicky. Like,
Nope.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, it was an emotional roller coaster. Thankfully, because I had twins, I had a lot more frequent appointments, so it helped keep my mind at ease. But
that's good.
Yeah, it was
So
hard.
good. And like after going through so many losses previous to that, I can only imagine how panicky that makes you about every little thing that happens.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like I ride in that boat too, because I also had a miscarriage right before this baby.
Yeah.
So it's like every little thing just makes me freak out.
Yeah, it's hard to enjoy the pregnancy when you've had, prior loss, because you just never know, I mean, what's going to happen. But yeah, it's challenging.
Right.
For sure.
And they weren't as kind to me because I didn't get as many scans. So I went in at 6 weeks just to confirm. And they're like, yeah, there's a baby in there, but they couldn't find a really strong heartbeat. So they're like, you can come back in a few weeks and we'll check you out again.
Torture.
And so I waited until 12 weeks and I came back in and I was like, okay, do I get another scan? And they're like, oh no, we don't scan you every time we see you. So I had to wait till 18 weeks. And then even then they were just like, yep, this baby is in there. He has a heartbeat, but the scans are inconclusive because we couldn't see their face and all their body parts. So I had to wait till 24 weeks for them to tell me that it was viable in a healthy pregnancy.
Oh my gosh.
I made it 24 weeks into 40 and I was just, nope. I would not want to do that.
No, that's just torture. That's torture.
What has been the hardest part about having twins?
Oh my gosh. I will say that probably was best that I had them first because I knew no different.
Yeah.
But,
that's true.
Yeah.
But that first year was a blur. It was a blur. It's a lot. I mean, it's so fun, and just seeing the relationship between the two of them is, very rewarding. But it was a lot that first year with 2 babies. And my husband was actually still coaching, and he was getting his master's. So I'm like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm like, can you drop coaching, please? I need you at home. I need help. But and that was the hard thing too, is, we didn't really have any family that was really close by that could help out. So it was just him and I. I mean, we obviously made it work, but yeah. it was challenging.
Man,
Just the lack of sleep, I think, and
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I had one the first time around, and I am thankful for that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I can't imagine doing two at once the first time.
So when so obviously you had twins, you made it through. What made you go back the second round?
I mean, I knew that. So after we actually had the transfer that got us pregnant with the twins, they had called us the next day and said all the other remaining embryos were able to be frozen.
Wow.
Yeah. And
That's
we were
awesome.
floored because they had told
Yeah.
us expect one baby. So
Yeah.
we had just talked about it and we're like, we want to have a bigger family. We always knew that we did. We had those eggs in the embryos in the freezer. So we're like, there's a reason why we were able to do that. So we actually did go back for another transfer right around the time the twins were 2. I miscarried that one.
Ugh.
Yeah. So then we went back again. I took a year off because I don't know if you've been through it. I mean, the drugs do
It's
a
a
number
lot.
on your body
Yeah.
and just the mental draining from all of it. It's a lot. So I'm like, I just need some time. So, and plus my gallbladder went out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. From having the twins. The doctor's like, this
Wow.
is very common after
Yeah.
pregnancy. And he said,
Yeah.
especially with you being on fertility treatments for so long and having
Yeah.
so much estrogen and then being pregnant with twins. He's like, it was a given. So it's just a whirlwind. So
I feel like I know nothing about pregnancy.
yeah,
Like, so did you have to have your gallbladder taken out?
I did.
Wow.
Hmm.
Huh.
Yeah. So I did. I was like, my body needs a break.
Yeah.
So we waited about another year and then we went in again. And that's when we got pregnant with our youngest. So
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, we had started planning because Cadmus had just turned around 2, and we were like, yeah, it's the perfect time to try again for another one. Got pregnant and found out at 10 or 11 weeks that I had miscarried, so had to go and get a DNC, and then I had to wait, and then it seemed like forever, and then we tried for a year almost exactly and couldn't get pregnant, and I was like, uh-oh. So we were about this close from having to go through all that treatment, and then we just I just got pregnant out of the blue, and I was like, oh God, thank God, because
yeah.
I don't know if I could have gone through much more than what I already did without just emotionally being wrecked.
Yeah.
What could you explain what a DNC is?
Yeah, a DNC is just, most people label it an abortion. What it is they go in and they open you up and they pull out any of the tissue that was there that wasn't a successful pregnancy, and then you just have pretty much a regular period for a few weeks until it stops, and then you move on. You keep going.
Was how was your family through this? Did you tell them what was going on? Did you kind of keep it to your guys' selves?
Yeah, I mean, we started opening up quite a bit, once I started going to Wichita. I mean, everyone was pretty much aware.
Yeah.
Outside of family, no one really knew other than really close friends. And it just felt like such a taboo topic.
Yeah.
But it's funny because once I started to talk about it, all these people started coming out of the woodwork. Well, I know this person or I know this person. And it amazed me how many people actually suffer through silence.
Oh yeah.
Right.
They
It's a
don't
lot.
say anything because, it's like when somebody, has a death in their family, people don't always know what to say or I'm sorry for your loss or whatever. They just
Yeah.
avoid the elephant in the room.
Yep.
And I felt like that was infertility a lot of the times is people didn't know what to say or they meant well, but they said some really awful things.
Yeah.
So once I started talking about it, I'm like, man, there needs to be a voice behind it because if we don't ever talk about it, then people are all just going to think that this is just them and, not have anybody to relate to. So I do think it's important to talk about. I know not everybody feels comfortable doing so and that's, to each their own, but I felt like for whatever reason,
Yeah.
it was something I needed to talk about.
Yeah.
And so I'd actually started a blog
That's
about
really
it.
cool.
Mhm. I haven't wrote on it for a long time because
Now I'm gonna look it up right here. What's it called?
Right.
Chasing Rainbows 12.
Out
Okay.
of curiosity, and I'm just curious about the statistics. How common are miscarriages? Because I know, within my own family, my brother and sister-in-law struggled. I think they lost 2 or 3 when they were trying to have. I'm pretty sure my parents lost one right before me.
Right.
Because they had my brother, then they tried for a second and lost that one, and then I came along later. So how common are miscarriages?
That's a really interesting question
great
because
question.
a lot of women have miscarriages and don't even know it.
Yep.
So because you get pregnant in the weeks before your expected period, a lot of times when you have a fertilized egg that doesn't even attach, it just seems like you're having a regular period. So it's like a huge number. It's like something like 1 in 5 pregnancies end in miscarriage. But like most of the time, women don't even notice those. It's the ones where they stick and they make it a few weeks in that they really notice. And I'm not sure exactly how many that happens to, but it's still a pretty significant number. It's pretty common. I do know we did look up the statistics for women between the ages of 15 and 49 with no prior births. 1 in 5 of those women are unable to get pregnant within a year. So that's still a huge number. That's 20% of women pretty much between the ages of 15 and 49 who just experience some kind of infertility.
And to define, so kind of going back to the blog meaning, when you hear the term rainbow baby, that's what infertility babies, like who, can you explain that more?
Yeah. So a rainbow baby is a baby that you have after a loss. So like the twins were our rainbow babies because we had 4 prior miscarriages to them. And then Everly, my youngest, is also a rainbow baby because we had a miscarriage prior to her too.
Yep.
This
will be a rainbow baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
When, and kind of going back to that taboo topic thing is like, I know 2 people that I follow that I went to high school with who posted like every single syringe that they used. They posted, they posted everything. Like they made it very apparent of like what struggles they were going to. I had one who lives in Missouri, went all the way to Colorado for an infertility specialist and stayed with some mutual friends out there and like went through that whole thing. And they finally have a very cute little baby girl. And it's just like all these. And then the other friend is like the exact opposite, where they tried for, I think, 2-3 years, and they've kind of just accepted that they're just going to be dog parents. And so it's very like, when you hear kind of one struggle, it does kind of come out of the woodwork, kind of. I mean, yes, for infertility, but like all things, really. Like when you start talking about these taboo topics, you're like, oh yeah, like I literally watched my dad die. Like no one wants to talk about that.
Right.
I saw him take his last breath. But and then you kind of go through all those, and it's almost like not necessarily trauma bonding, but it is. It's like a collective bonding because of the trauma we've been through. Do you think? Oh, where'd my questions go? Sorry.
How tough is it on the part? I mean, I know it's an emotional thing for both. Do you feel like it's tougher on the person carrying or on the partner? Like, how tough is it on the partner?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's so tough. Like I think men are often forgotten about in the infertility journey just because, well, in most cases, or in my case, I guess, I was the one going through all of the physical stuff, right? Like I was the one going to all the appointments, all the scans, the checks, the shots, everything. But, I always had to remind, friends and family, I'm like, hey, look, Jason's going through this just as much as I am.
Yeah.
Like he has the emotional burden. He has the financial burden. He may not have as much as the physical burden, but he's going through it. And I think for men, it's even more difficult because it's such, like, how do you go about saying like, well, I'm struggling with infertility because my wife can't get pregnant.
Right.
I just don't think they know how to talk about it.
Right.
And for my husband, like he's always the one that wants to fix everything.
Yes.
So the fact that he couldn't do anything about it, I think was just so hard for him too.
Yep.
He just had to kind of sit back and watch it all happen and it was out of his control essentially. But, a lot of times too, I always hate the word. It's like, whose fault is it?
Yes.
Because people are always like, well, whose fault is it that you can get pregnant? It's nobody's fault. It's just a medical condition, right? But I do think that if that falls on the male side, they have male factor infertility.
Yeah.
I have a friend that had that, and I think it's even harder for them.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that they know how to talk about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Or want to.
Right.
I mean, I don't know, but I do think it's very hard on men.
Well,
we hadn't even made it to the like whose fault is it part yet. We
Yeah.
were on the cusp of it. Like he went and had a semen analysis, and I was like the next person through the door to go to the doctor because semen analysis is the cheapest.
Yes.
So it's the easiest thing to rule out when you hit infertility is like, well, we can either spend thousands of dollars on analyzing the woman's body, or we can spend, a couple $100 to get a semen analysis. So most people start there. So that was the first thing we did. And then we just, poof, got pregnant like the next week. So I don't know if we just scared his swimmers into paying attention or what. But
Okay, we're going to get checked out here.
yeah, but like before that, like the not knowing is almost just as hard. Like not knowing why it's not working, not knowing if it's him or me or our bodies combined that are not working. Like it is so tough because you have to spend a year trying before anyone will see you. Like
Really?
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and when
Like-
we first started too, it was hard because they would say it's like unexplained. Like
Yeah,
they couldn't
yes,
before they
the
gave me the
same.
diminished ovarian reserve or anything like that. They're like, it's unexplained. And I'm like, I
There's no
almost
reason for
wanted something to be wrong with me
Yes,
just
so
so
you
I
could
had an
fix it.
answer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because if you know what's wrong, you can fix it.
Yeah, and like we did all of this testing, and they're like, everything's coming back. My husband's like, well, that's good news. I'm like, but is it? Because
Right,
like
right.
now we don't know what we're working with.
Yeah,
like we don't know
exactly.
what we're trying to, help
Yep.
solve to get pregnant. So
Yep.
I would say that's probably hard for anyone that has that and they don't have an answer and they just don't know why it's not happening.
Did you like try a whole bunch of different stuff before you knew what the problem was? Like I know a lot of people are like, put your legs up, or like, count your ovulation days. And, like,
Yes.
did you try all of the fad things?
Yes, I think we did everything in the book. I mean, honestly, and then people would always be like, "Oh, just relax, it'll happen."
Yeah,
Or-
it'll
like,
happen.
I've
Okay.
had somebody tell me, "Oh, just go get drunk, it'll happen." I'm like,
Oh
"Yeah,
my God.
no."
That'll make
not-
it worse.
Yeah,
I know. I'm like, thanks for the advice, but no.
Is,
Like-
and you feel free to not talk about it if you don't want to. What's the craziest of those like
Oh,
kind of
jeez, Tim.
homebrew solutions
that you tried.
not necessarily that you tried, but that you came across? I mean, feel free to be. I mean, it depends on how open you want to be.
Probably. I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff, and I can't even remember half of them. But probably the craziest was just like you need to sleep with like your legs up for
Yeah.
so many minutes or whatever afterwards, or different positions and things like that people
Yeah.
would recommend. I
Yep.
mean, there's like turkey basters, like people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy stuff out there.
The newest one is using a diva cup, like a
Yes.
period cup,
What?
and filling that with semen and just sticking it up in there.
No,
Yeah, so it stays near your cervix long enough to actually fertilize an egg.
that can't be healthy.
Yeah, no, I mean
it's crazy stuff that
some
people have out
OBs
there.
even recommend it. So yeah,
What stuff are you Googling?
I mean when you're desperate, everything.
Yeah, I mean that's
Oh my
true.
God.
It's true. Yeah, there's a lot of crazy, things out there, but yeah.
Yeah. It turned out for me the thing that worked and gave me a little more comfort was taking ovulation tests. Like,
Yeah.
because my period is regular, plus or minus a day. So most people would be like, oh, that'll be really easy to track. But like my ovulation would fluctuate 2 or 3 days sometimes, no matter how regular my period was. So the first, 8 months probably of that year, we were just having sex at the wrong time. And like that's like within hours of the wrong time.
Right.
Like it makes a big difference. So
And
like
that's what they have you do when you do
Yeah.
inseminations too,
Yes.
or IUIs, is that
Yep.
they have you do ovulation
Yep.
kits just so they can time it. And that's when that was a huge eye opener for me because
yeah.
I was finding out that, well, this isn't happening the same time every month. Like,
Yes.
it's so different.
Yep.
But
Yeah. So if you're in that year and you're struggling, you might go out and buy a pack of, ovulation test strips and just see. Because if it is fluctuating even by the day, it makes a huge difference. Because like the last time when we got pregnant, I ovulated and I'm like, now.
right.
And then we got pregnant. So it
How
was
often
just
does like a period like does ovulation fluctuate quite frequently, or can it be fairly regular?
for a lot of people, it's regular if they have regular periods. But sometimes if you have, even a day or two off of a regular period, your ovulation will fluctuate too. So if you're struggling, it's worth looking
Yeah.
at.
And like the temperature checking and
Yeah.
all
Oh my
of that.
gosh.
Yeah.
Like,
it's-
you have to like lay in bed and not move and like take your temperature to see what your like resting body temperature is.
Yeah.
It's
I haven't
it's
had
like a full-time job.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
it really is.
I haven't had a period in 2 years, so
Lucky.
God bless those IUDs. So couldn't tell you. So I also this is I'm gonna ask some really ignorant questions.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
But so like just so I'm understanding, so the girls are biologically related to Jason, correct?
Yes. Mhm.
Do you plan on telling them when they get older?
Yeah, they already know. I mean,
Oh, cool.
I don't know that they fully understand yet,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we have always said to them, we had to have a special lady help us to get you.
Oh, that's
Aw.
Because
cute.
I never want
Yeah.
it to be like a shock or a surprise to
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Of course, they don't understand what that means now, but
Mhm.
they'll grow up knowing that. So when they
Mhm.
finally start to ask questions, it's not going to be, what in the world? Like, so they know. But it's interesting because I did a lot of research when we were going through
Mhm.
prior to the donor egg process. And actually, people that are born from a donor egg or donor sperm, or not a donor egg or a surrogate,
Mhm.
technically have 3 biological parents.
That's so cool.
So they have the donor egg
Yeah.
is a biological parent. Then whoever the sperm came from is a biological parent. And then the surrogate is also a biological parent because their blood, their DNA
Yeah. Is what built
is,
them pretty
is
much.
built. Yes. So there's a lot of research about they
Wow.
technically have 3 biological parents.
That's so cool.
So if your DNA was compared to the girls, it would match somewhat?
That's what my understanding is. And I've always been very
Huh.
curious to do it just because I want to
mind is
know.
blown
yeah,
right
so
now.
is mine.
Yeah,
That's so
and so
cool.
I started researching it just because I was wanting to know a lot more about donor eggs
Yeah.
and the process. And when I ran across that, I'm like, there's a technical term for it, and I should have looked it up before I came in here, but I don't remember. And so I started doing a lot of research about that. I'm like, well, that's crazy. Like,
That's so neat.
they are technically
right.
biologically related to me then. So it was always interesting to me, and I'm like, it always gave me kind of some kind of comfort,
Yeah.
I guess you could say. But now that I've had them, it wouldn't even matter to me if they didn't have any
Right.
biological connection to me. But yeah, I always found it very
Oh,
interesting.
that's so cool.
Yeah.
I knew it had gone, I know it works the other way around. Like when you get pregnant, your DNA changes based on the baby you're carrying. So like it's kind of comforting to people who have also had like multiple miscarriages to know that they didn't actually like ever lose that baby. They still have some of that DNA in them. So like it's really cool to know that that it works and it changes your way, like your body that way.
That's crazy.
Yep. Especially if you have boys. Apparently, apparently boys, if you carry them, their genetic material gets lodged in your brain.
What?
Yeah. So so like your
I'm gonna need to see
DNA,
the
it like
facts behind
changes your
this.
brain significantly when you have boys. I didn't know that either.
Huh.
Right.
Interesting.
I have to find whatever study that was.
Yep. All right, we're
Or
gonna take
that
a break. We're gonna take a break here, and we'll come back.
One thing you haven't asked yet, or I've been wondering, since the name of this podcast is Silky Momz, Haley, would you consider yourself crunchy or silky?
Oh,
Would you like us to give the definition
yes,
again?
please do.
So crunchy moms are very like holistic, all natural birth, only breastfeeding, only eating organic.
Right. The
growing
1,000 hours outside
1,000 hours
people.
outside,
No dyes.
all wood toys,
No
like
sugar.
and that's the extreme.
yeah, right.
And the Silky Momz is like we're okay with
Western
Western
medicine.
medicine, so vaccinations, taking your kid get antibiotics for an ear infection,
Right.
going to McDonald's and getting chicken nuggets
Yeah.
and things like that.
Right.
It's silky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's scrunchy too, where you
Right,
can be
you can put a little bit
silky
of both.
and
yeah,
crunchy.
which I would say would probably be, I mean, that, because, there's obviously things that, you do research on, like the whole red dye thing
Yeah.
and things
Oh,
like
yeah.
that, but I think I'm definitely not extreme on either side.
Right.
I'm probably
Yeah.
more so in the middle, but probably lean more towards the silky.
Silky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's kind of where we were too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we'll do stuff like have a garden in the backyard just for the fun of it. So, he can
Right.
learn how to grow plants and what they are. But I'm not crunchy by any means. I'm not making my entire vegetable intake based on my own garden.
Right.
I did make my own butter a couple weeks ago, just out of
Whoa.
curiosity.
Making all this bread too lately.
Yeah. Well, you have to have butter and
Are you
bread.
going to the dark
Butter
side?
is like my main ingredient for all my cooking.
Yeah.
Last night I got home later than I normally do, so Milton had already cooked dinner, and so he had chicken and rice and veggies for me, and I was like, oh my gosh, this rice is so good. What'd you put in it? He goes, butter. I'm like,
You're like,
yeah, that's why I love it.
That's the Paula Deen method.
It is
Yes.
the Paula Deen method.
Right.
By the way, speaking of gardening, how's the worm garden going, Sydney?
Oh my
yeah.
gosh, my worm. I'm pretty sure they're all dead.
Oh no.
They had a rough start of life. It like rained really hard
it
on them a
rained,
couple
and then
days.
it got cold, and I haven't turned the compost buckets in a hot minute. I've just kind of been letting it do its own thing until it got warmer, and so I'll probably this weekend dedicate some time to making sure my worms are still
Oh my
alive.
gosh.
So I might just buy more worms and throw them in there, just see what it does. You can get 100 of them for $25 on Amazon. So.
Right. We'll have worms eating the dead worms.
Yeah.
It'll be okay.
Yeah, it'll be like a composting of composting.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you can raise them and have them fight each other.
Or-
as
Ooh,
you can
yeah.
have worm battles.
Worm battles. Do you know that worms have 7 hearts?
Yeah.
That's why when you cut them in
Yeah.
half, they stay alive.
I did not know that.
Yeah. I learned that in 5th grade. I had to make a model of a worm.
Wow.
I did it out of styrofoam balls.
You.
Did you ever
them
have to
together.
dissect one? Because I did that in biology
How
class.
do you dissect a worm?
Carefully.
I was gonna say there's not much there.
Yeah. Well, they preserve them so they're kind of rubbery. They're like
Huh.
formaldehyded. So like,
Interesting.
yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to hop back into our topic here. So I had like questions relating to significant others, but we've kind of already answered those.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had another question and then I forgot it. But so are there other, like, what other types of infertility treatments are there? Do you know those off the top of your head, or because I have no idea.
Yeah. So like insemination is probably one of the next things after like finding out you have a problem, just because it's a lower cost barrier, which is they pretty much turkey baster you for lack of scientific terms.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just get in there and they put it in as close to the egg as they can get it. And then they can do intrauterine insemination, which is the same thing, except they take the turkey baster through your cervix and put it directly into your uterus. So it's even closer. And then it's like, after that, it's pretty much IVF as far as I know.
Yeah.
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 That it? Yeah. Have you guys watched the Our Father documentary on Netflix?
Oh, is this the
No.
guy who like gave semen to a bank and has like hundreds
Oh,
and hundreds
yeah.
of
No.
kids?
Yes and no. So he was an infertility doctor
Oh.
from the 70s and 80s.
And he used his own,
Yeah.
And
correct?
he
Yep.
used his own sperm in order to impregnate these women without them knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
I've heard about that. I haven't
Yep.
watched the documentary, but I've heard it.
Yeah. So he
Yikes.
currently has, from what they can count, almost 100 kids.
Oh my God.
That's insane.
To over 100.
That's
and
crazy.
after they kind of figured out what he was doing, they found out that there are more doctors
geez.
That
who
feel
have
the
done this
same.
throughout the country.
Oh my gosh.
Like, can you, like, I don't mean to like put like, but that is like eerily creepy, because if you think about it, sperm does not last very long.
Right.
So, and with all these patients, he would have had to go get one off
Right.
and then literally carry it into the room
Yeah. Or freeze it.
or free. Well, can you freeze sperm?
I don't know.
So I don't know the protocol, but
yeah.
like I know people use, donor sperm, and I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, obviously they
Oh
have to be
yeah,
able
how
to
would
like
that work?
Right.
train, ship it or however they do it. So I'm
Right.
sure they put it on dry ice or something. I
Yeah.
don't know, but
This is like in the 70s.
Ugh.
80s.
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, I don't know.
That
That's
it's a really
unfortunate.
good documentary. I highly recommend it. Just out of
That's
if you're
crazy.
curious, but
As far as other options of being infertile, are the options that you've listed so far easier or cheaper than, say, adoption?
oh, that's a good
Hadn't thought
good
about
question.
that. Yeah.
Adoption is fairly expensive as well.
Yeah.
It depends. Like, if you're wanting a newborn, it can be even more expensive from my
Yeah.
understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't know the numbers exactly, but I know it's right up there, if not more than like a round of IVF.
Yeah, there's I ended up on like adoption TikTok for a very short time, and it's just these kids saying, I'm a $20,000 baby, or I'm, a $50,000 baby, or I was half price, or like something crazy like that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, adoption is, I think it's mainly just lawyers' fees that you have to legal fees that you have to get around.
They have to trap up and everything. I'm sure that's a big part of it.
Well, and surrogacy is probably right up there with it as another option. It's still just as expensive because at that point you're paying a whole nother person to use their body for 9 months.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I had a friend that was just a surrogate. She was pregnant with the baby when I was pregnant with my youngest. And the couple that chose her was actually out of New York.
Oh, wow.
So like they were flying her to New York for appointments. They came here for the birth. So, I mean, it's just that cost added up with it too. Just the travel expenses.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever consider adoption?
We did. And, that's not something that we've ever taken off the table if we, want to, expand. But I just wasn't I'd heard so many things about adoption as far as like you can get the baby and then they can change their mind. And I didn't know if mentally I was strong enough for that at the point because, after everything we've been through. And to be honest, I wanted to experience pregnancy.
Yeah.
Like that was a big thing for me too. I just wanted to experience it.
I've heard a lot of like ethical things about adoption too, which kind of scares me a little bit, just based on like kids' reactions that have grown up after they've been adopted. And it makes me weary because it's very much so like a money grab more than it is caring about a child. So it kind of makes me feel a little icky.
Even if it's like foster to adopt?
That is a little different, but you don't normally find younger kids, and a lot of like foster kids have already been super traumatized, which I'm not saying they don't need help, because they do. They need people to adopt them and help them get through all of that. But like those kids also have like a horrible hard shake at it, and sometimes even after they've grown up and you have given them a great life and supported them, they still come back and say things like they're mad that they got adopted because the system took them away from their parents and they would have rather been there. So it's so hard to like validate those kids' feelings while still trying to validate your own. Like if you want to have a kid, to take someone else's is very it's hard for me to wrap my mind around emotionally anyways.
I mean, there is a lot of kids though that need good homes. Obviously that's important, but I wish there was an easier way to go about it than the current system. Just because I think a lot of kids would be adopted that aren't right now. If the system had made it easier to do so.
Yep. And you have to adopt from a very like selfless position. It's not I'm adopting because I want a kid. It's more of like I'm adopting to help this kid that already exists. So it's hard, but it's very worth it.
Interesting. Yeah, I never thought about it like that way.
Right.
Did you have, like, you mentioned that you had a friend that was going through surrogacy with your youngest. Did you have anybody with your twins that you were able to, like, did you have that friend that you were able to, like, have that pregnancy
relate with?
Same person, actually.
Oh, really?
So, yeah,
That's cool.
she got pregnant and she was kind of waiting for me to have my appointment before she told me. And that's the thing, too. It was like, not that she did this by any means, but, people, I think when they know somebody that's going through infertility, like they don't think that they are afraid to say or share their joy. And I think it's important to make note that we can be both. Like we can be sad for ourselves, but happy for our friends. We
celebrate our friends.
Yeah. So, and my sister, even when she got pregnant with her first, was like hesitant to tell me because she was afraid I'd be so upset. And obviously I'm thrilled to have, another niece or nephew. But it was the same person. She was kind of waiting to see how my appointment went because she knew that we were going through the fertility stuff. And So I had called her and, told her, hey, I'm pregnant. We've got twins. And she actually came by the house that night and was like, I'm pregnant too.
Oh, that's
And
so
we actually
cool.
had the exact same due date.
Oh my gosh.
wow.
Yeah. So it was fun. We'd always text each other. And our husbands were
that's
probably
so
like, will
fun.
you please stop talking about this stuff? Because there was some random things that happened during pregnancy.
Yep.
But yeah,
there's
I
a lot of those.
ended up going 5 weeks early with the twins. So
Oh, that's so cool.
yeah.
I need to start writing these questions down that pop in my head because then I forget them.
Yeah.
What?
For me, the tiptoeing around people thing was kind of a big deal for me because like when I had my miscarriage, I didn't want everybody and their brother to know, especially
Yeah.
the first one, because like I don't want the I'm so sorry every time somebody sees me, because like I'm already sorry enough for myself. I don't
Right.
I don't
Right.
need everybody else and their brother to be sorry for me. There's nothing they could do about it. So like just trying to not tell people almost until like it either became a bigger problem or it was fixed for me kind of kept me from going quite as crazy. Like, did you reach out to people? Did you just tell your parents and close family, or?
Yeah. In the beginning, it was just our parents and our close friends and family that knew.
Right.
Not a whole lot of people knew about it, but my work knew,
Right.
obviously, because I kind of went into a, were we at, I don't know if
You
were
weren't
there.
at Sunflower. When I started at the bank, I think you left pretty shortly after, like within like 6 to 8 months.
I was going to say,
think.
yeah. So yeah, I was working when I first had it, and they all knew and were very supportive of me in the journey. So
Right.
I told them just because I needed the time. But
Yeah.
it started out just with like close friends and family. And then as it, we kept going down the journey and down the path and things were happening, then I started to become more vocal about it. But
Yeah. For me, staying busy is what kept me from going crazy, I feel like, because I could just kind of like focus on something different for a while. So like I had my DNC and I came back to work the next day.
yeah.
Yeah. When you were talking
Nobody
about
knew.
surgery last week, and I'm like, when did
Yeah.
Amber take off time? Like
Yeah.
I was going
I
back
just
in my
took
head.
a day off and
I'm like,
just
what
came
the
back. I don't
heck?
even think Gus knew. He's standing in there. He might, I don't know. But I don't think anybody knew. I just took a day off and came back.
Because like I remember, because I found out that you were pregnant when
At the art
gala.
Yeah.
Amber's husband
Yeah.
got a little
He got
too
excited.
excited. And Amber's like 6 weeks.
Right. And I'm like, look,
And-
man, we know nothing
Yeah.
about this yet.
And-
Calm down.
And then like I didn't hear anything after that.
Right.
And so then I was like,
Uh-oh.
I wonder if
Right.
something happened. And so like I
Right.
didn't want to bring it up because one,
Yeah.
it's none of my business.
Right.
Like two, I didn't want to like make Amber cry in the middle of work.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so I was like,
Yeah.
if she wants to say something, she'll say something. But
Right.
I'm like,
Yeah. No,
So-
I just kept on trucking because I knew if I stopped, I was going to like just break down. So I was like,
yeah.
we're just going to keep going for a while.
If you had one thing or maybe even multiple things of advice to tell people who are either going through infertility or how their family could support them, what would it be?
Oh man. Probably the biggest thing for me is there's a website called Inspire online. It's like an online support group and, talk communication and things like that. If you don't have somebody that knows or is going through it, I would reach out there because it can feel like a very lonely road. So I would definitely get the support that you need, the help that you need just to get through it. And it's just a hard road. I don't know. It's just hard.
Yeah.
So I get the support for sure. And then for family, sometimes it's not even about saying something or having to say something. It's just about being there. So like for me, the biggest thing I would say is don't avoid it or act like it's not happening, because that probably was more hurtful to me than anything, is with the people that just wouldn't acknowledge that this was the road I was going on.
Yeah.
Like they were afraid to say anything, so they didn't say anything at all. And I'm like, that was probably hurtful. So I would just, hey, reach out, say, hey, I'm sorry you're going through this. I'm here if you need me. Just those kind of things, like just relax or go on vacation or
those aren't helpful.
when it's meant to be, it'll be. I mean, those things
Right.
aren't helpful, even though I'm sure there was good intent behind them.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice, is just to reach out and let them know that you're aware that they're going through this, and you're there if they need you to be. So,
Right.
and I don't know, like in April, there's always that Infertility Awareness Week too.
Yeah.
And I saw a quote the other day on it that kind of was like really rang true to me. It's like, it's not enough just to bring awareness about infertility. It's like, we need to normalize the emotions felt and the pain experienced. And that was so true, because there's so much to it. And just the emotions and the trauma, I would almost even say, that people go through, it's real.
Right. Yeah, we can talk numbers all day that 20% of women are infertile, you know, but like, I mean, nobody takes into account like how much that really affects somebody's life.
Yeah. I mean, I almost would say that I kind of became fixated on it.
Yes.
So like every month, like I would probably even go to the things of saying that I don't know that I fully sometimes even gave myself the time to process and to deal with the emotions of it. Because if it didn't work, I was like, okay, well, what next?
Yep. Next month. Moving on
so like,
already.
what's the next plan, or what's the next step? And so that I just kind of became fixated on it for a while, which probably wasn't healthy. But I knew what I wanted, and I was didn't want to waste any more time. So
yeah, and like that puts like a strain on your relationship too, because it's hard for the husband to also read our minds and keep up with that. So like when I would start my period, I'd be like, okay, well, next month, let's start talking about it now. And he's like, whoa, like we literally just tried to make a baby a week ago. Like, calm down. So it's hard to like keep both of you not necessarily on the same page, because he wanted it too, but like emotionally in the same place.
On the same timeline.
Yeah. And then like, then sex doesn't turn into fun time anymore. It's like,
it's a chore.
Come get it done kind of thing. So it's a wild ride. It really is.
It is.
I don't really have like, I'm still stuck on the sex is a chore and not fun time.
Right.
That's going to stick in my brain like all day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you have like a little checklist, man. You're like, did I have sex this day? Did I have sex this day? Did I put my feet up long enough this day?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I could, like when Milt and I started dating, like I wrote down every day that we had sex, only because I knew I wasn't on birth control. And so that way I could be like, well, conceived that day.
Yeah.
And so like that was the only reason I ever tracked it.
Right.
And yeah, so I never.
They make whole apps that have like a little ding dong time to have sex like notification.
Yeah.
They sure do.
It's terrifying.
See, at that point, you just have to turn it into a game.
Right.
I know. All right, I'm not going to explore that here. So we're going to wrap up our day with silly things our kids have done this week. Amber, you've got a pretty good one. You go first.
So we love dinosaurs. Cadmus does. And he's a big fan of those little kits that you can get where you can like dig the dinosaur bones out and like assemble the dinosaur. So we got him one of those. And I sent it with him to our nanny's house to watch him. So they're digging out the little pieces and hanging out. And he gets to like the pelvic bone of this dinosaur that has like little legs attached to it. And on the back of it, it's got like a little stud sticking out that you can like put the tail on. So it like attaches to the hips. And so he pulls it out and he looks at it and he just so confidently looks the nanny right in the face and goes, "Dinosaur penis." Oh. Because he's at the right age where he's like learning what his anatomy is and like how to go potty, and we're potty training right now. So yeah, he just looks at it and goes, "Dinosaur penis." She laughed so hard she had to message me and send me a little picture of the dinosaur bone that it was pretty funny.
I think you mean the dinosaur boner.
Yeah. Yes.
God. Here's your dad joke for the day.
Yeah.
Right.
Very punny of you.
You're welcome.
So, I think the only thing I've got this week is Madeline's going through a naked phase.
Oh yeah.
So like I put jammies on her one night and she's going through this thing where she just will not go to sleep.
Right.
And so I went into her room to check on her, completely like stripped down. I'm like, I didn't even realize you could take your own jammies off.
Right.
Like that's great to know.
For you.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Like you are forever taking your own pants off for now. Now, and so now like I have to ask her every night. I go, "Do you want jammies or do you want to sleep naked?" And she'll just look at me. She goes, naked. And so last night, like, we were cuddling and watching TV and eating popcorn right before bed. And she just had her pull-up on. And next thing you know, she's down on the ground taking her pull-up off. I go, nope. That's not how we go to bed.
Right.
I go, you need that so you don't get pee on your sheets.
Right.
And she goes, pee on my sheets? And I was like, yeah, what you put in the toilet, that's pee. And it's gross when you get it on your sheets and it's uncomfortable. She's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
put her diaper back on.
Okay.
Hopefully, and I know some kids, from what I have heard from other people, will do that around, like, they'll run through the house.
Oh,
Is that
yeah.
a problem?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. The minute she gets out of the bathtub, it's a free-for-all.
Nikki! Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Been there.
It's freedom.
I don't know what it is about. Yeah, I don't know if it's
I
just
don't know.
like the freedom, because my girls
Yeah.
will do that too. Like, I'm like, okay, go get your clothes off, put them in the hamper, get ready for your bath.
Right.
And all of a sudden they'll just like go running through the whole
Yeah.
house. I'm like, why is this a thing? Like, why does this happen?
Can you imagine if we normalize that as
I know.
adults?
Yeah.
I mean, you can. It's called becoming a nudist.
Well, and there actually is a nudist colony outside of Hutch, if you're curious.
is?
Yeah. It's like a campground.
Oh.
I'm not going to ask how you know this.
Yeah.
So I used to bowl.
Oh, wow. This is good.
Yeah, wild.
This is gonna be a
And so
story.
to keep myself entertained during
While
bowling.
clothed?
Yes, while closed. So to keep myself entertained, I would look up for like random stuff to entertain my team. And so we were talking about nudist colonies for some reason. I go, I wonder if there's any in Kansas. And so I
Oh my
Googled it.
gosh.
And yeah,
Sure
there's one in
enough.
Topeka and one in, outside of Hutch. Anyway. But yeah, and have you ever heard, like, there's some TikToks of like the clothed mom and the naked mom?
Yes. Yeah.
Have you guys heard about those? So
Yeah.
like you're either the naked mom or you're the clothed mom. You're either the mom
Right.
that walks around in your underwear and half naked, or you're
Right.
the mom that like won't show anything in front of your kids.
Yep. Yep.
So
I feel like that's a very dad thing to do. Like from the bedroom to the bathroom,
Oh, to like
Yeah.
walk in your underwear. Yeah.
or less than that.
I'm
Okay.
definitely the naked mom. Milton normally just wears at least shorts around the house.
I feel like it might also depend on like the sex of your kids, because like
oh no.
I don't know. Like Cadmus, like I was pretty much naked mom clear up until like recently, when he's just like boobs and he's like trying to poke him all the time, and I'm like, please stop. So like if it was a little girl, I would be probably different about it, because I'd be like, yeah, this is woman's body. Congrats. Like you have one too.
Yeah.
You know? So I feel like it'd be a little easier to explain that to another daughter than it would be to your son, who's like, where's your
Maybe.
penis? I'm like, I don't have one of those.
Fair. Yeah. It's fair. All right.
Are you
And-
prepared for the sex talk?
Oh,
I don't think any of
I was
us
going to
are.
say, are you
Yeah,
ever
we're-
prepared
that's-
for that? I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's way in the future for us. The sexual parts conversation we've probably already had.
Yeah.
Just because like he knows I have boobs and he doesn't. So
Mm-hmm,
you know, there are girl parts and there are boy parts, and that's about all he knows
Yep.
currently.
Yeah.
We're getting into a whole different other topic, but
Right.
anyway, we can probably leave that for another day of explaining sex to our children as they grow up. Haley, do your kids do anything crazy this week, or do you have any fun overall stories?
Well, kind of on that same topic of parts. The girl, one of my girls, I don't even remember which one it was, but she had walked back into our bedroom, kind of bathroom area, and then she comes out and she's like, "Mom, why does Daddy pee out of his belly button?" And I was like, what? And she was like, he was standing at the toilet instead of sitting. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's what boys do. And she's like, but why do they pee out of their belly button? I'm like, well, they don't. So we kind of had that talk. But yeah, I was like, that's interesting that's where her mind went.
Yeah.
Oh
Yep.
my gosh, that's
That's
so
so
funny. Pee out of their belly button. That's a
Yeah.
good one.
Yeah.
That's real good. That's quality. All right. We're going to wrap this up. Again, make sure to follow us on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Podbean.
All the good places.
I think that's all we have right now.
Spotify.
Yeah, we're on, if you're watching this, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Podcast, all
Yeah.
the streaming. If you're listening to this, check us out on Facebook and YouTube and TikTok.
Yep.
And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yeah.
We like to hear from you. The
Yeah.
whole probably 5 people that are listening to this right now. We appreciate it. All right. We will see you guys next week.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.